You've probably used one without thinking twice about it. The whoosh of a canister zipping through a clear tube at a bank drive-through. That system is a direct descendant of one of the strangest, most ambitious technologies of the 19th century. A citywide network of pipes that moved messages, cash, and mail using nothing but compressed air. The idea started as a curiosity. In the early 1800s, Scottish engineer William Murdoch, already famous for pioneering gaslighting, proposed using air pressure to send small parcels through iron pipes. It sounded like a parlor trick. But by the 1850s, engineers realized it could solve a real problem. Telegraph offices needed a fast way to move written messages the last few hundred yards between the telegraph room and the people who needed them. In 1853, the London Pneumatic Dispatch Company built exactly that, a tube linking the Electric Telegraph Company's central office to the London Stock Exchange. A message went in a padded leather capsule, air pressure did the rest, and a written note that used to take a runner several minutes now arrived in seconds. It worked so well that London expanded the idea into short underground railways for parcels and mail, some of them large enough to carry a person lying down as a maintenance check. But it was Paris that turned pneumatic tubes into infrastructure. Starting in 1866, the city built a public message network called the Poste Pneumatique. Write your note, drop it at a station, and compressed air rocketed the capsule, called a nœud, across town through underground pipes. By the early 1900s, Paris had laid over 400 kilometers of tubing beneath its streets, linking post offices, government buildings, and eventually private subscribers. During the Belle Epoque, sending a nœud became a fashionable, faster alternative to a letter. The novelist Marcel Proust was a famous devotee, firing off noose to friends multiple times a day. The mechanics were simple but clever. A capsule, usually a felt-wrapped cylinder a few inches across, was loaded into an iron tube. At one end, a steam-powered air pump either blew air in behind it or sucked air out ahead of it, and the pressure difference shot the capsule along at surprising speed, sometimes over 30 miles an hour. Stations along the route could intercept and redirect capsules toward branching lines, essentially routing messages the way a switchboard routed calls. Businesses noticed. Department stores, which were exploding in size in the late 1800s, had a real logistics problem. How do you move cash from dozens of sales counters to a single secure cashier without clerks constantly walking back and forth? The answer, popularized by inventor James Lamson, was a store-wide network of tubes and overhead wire carriers that sent a clerk's payment straight to a central cash office and sent change straight back. That satisfying whoosh and clunk you still hear in old movies set in department stores wasn't Hollywood invention. It was standard retail equipment for decades. Offices adopted a similar idea, using tube systems from manufacturers like the Sturtevant Company to route memos and documents between floors long before anyone had heard of email. The most ambitious system of all, though, was built underground in New York City. Starting in 1897, the Batchelor Pneumatic Tube Company constructed a mail network linking the city's post offices, and by the time it was fully built out, it stretched for roughly 27 miles beneath Manhattan and Brooklyn. Iron capsules the size of a large thermos, each stuffed with hundreds of letters, shot through the tubes at up to 35 miles an hour. At its peak, the system moved a staggering share of the city's mail. Some estimates put it as high as 95%, faster than any horse-drawn or motor wagon could manage in New York traffic. City officials treated its opening ceremonies almost like a moon landing, with dignitaries ceremonially feeding the first capsules into the tubes themselves. Other major cities built their own networks. Berlin's system eventually became one of the largest in the world. Vienna and Prague built extensive tube networks too. Prague's, remarkably, stayed partially in operation into the 21st century, finally taken offline for good only after catastrophic flooding damaged the tunnels in 2002. Nothing lasts forever, though. As telephones became common in offices and homes through the early 20th century, the core advantage of pneumatic tubes, speed, stopped being unique. Telephones were faster, cheaper to expand, and didn't require miles of pressurized ironwork buried under a city. One by one, the great networks wound down. New York shut its postal tube system down in 1953. Paris, defiantly, kept its beloved Passe Pneumatique running for decades longer than anyone expected, finally closing it in 1984, nearly 120 years after it opened. But the underlying idea never really died. It just shrank down to a scale that made sense. Walk into almost any hospital today, and you'll find a pneumatic tube system quietly moving blood samples, medications, and lab specimens between departments in seconds, exactly the same physics that powered Marcel Proust's love notes across Paris. And that bank drive-through canister that still surprises kids the first time they see it work? Same idea, same whoosh, just a much smaller network than the one that used to run underneath entire cities. Would you trust a pipe to deliver your mail faster than a truck? Follow for the next object.